Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Human Library Podcast. With you, your hosts, Mehdi, Aslan, and myself, Adriano. As you can see today, the three of us are going to be online on this episode because of travel reasons. And we decided to not stop the episode, so we're adapting. We are overcoming every circumstance that we face. With you, this episode, we're gonna talk about three beautiful, amazing quotes, personal quotes of like three each, which have impacted our lives in a way, in certain ways, in many. So we hope this could be something that could also help you guys and ladies. So I'm gonna give the floor, the panel, to whoever wishes to start.
I can start.
Perfect.
Let's go.
Let's start with a nice and chill one. This is a quote by Rick Owens, who is a American fashion designer, and actually he's half Mexican, I think, as well. But yeah, the quote goes, "Working out is modern couture. No outfit is going to make you look or feel as good as having a fit body. Buy less clothing and go to the gym instead." And to me, it's one of his like most iconic or famous quotes, I guess. He's a very quotable person. Like if you go online and look for his quote, there's going to be a lot of pages sharing them because he just always says weird things, sometimes profound things, which is kind of unusual for fashion designers. But anyway, he has a lot of thoughts, and this one in particular was really impactful for me at the time when I first heard it, because I remember before encountering him or his work or his thoughts, I didn't really think, I always was paying attention to how people are dressed, and I would focus a lot on like trying to look a certain way using the clothes. Like I had this thing, like I need this color shirt or whatever, or like I like this combination of colors and I want to wear that. This for me was such a big mindset shift because also the reason is because he also doesn't promote like this kind of wardrobe. He's a fashion designer, but it's interesting that he's not promoting like buying lots of clothes, which is very contradictory. That's what's so interesting about this. He's like, buy less clothes, and he makes clothes for people. Like it's very interesting. And he himself like dresses in a very restrained and reduced way, where he literally, his wardrobe is like, I don't know, 5 tank tops and like 5 shorts of the same black color and like some sneakers, his own obviously, but he just wears that every day, like the same. He's like, I have a uniform. And to me, I found that kind of very interesting. I was like, whoa, that was the first time I encountered anyone doing that even. That was also in a tasteful and interesting way, like, and to me it was like, oh wow, like, okay, wearing less clothes is not like, it's a possibility. I don't know, for me in my head it was like, okay, this is wearing less clothes and like looking good and feeling confident. It's possible, it's cool. Like he kind of made it cool. And for me that was like, oh shit, okay, like this is great. I spend less time picking out clothes every day. I know what I like, kind of like. It also makes you think about what you like, because let's say you want to wear less stuff, right? And because you're wearing less stuff, the stuff that you wear, you're going to wear more often because it's like going to be the same stuff. So if you don't really like it, it's not going to be nice wearing it. So it really forces you to think like, what do I like so much that I could wear it almost every day? You know, it doesn't have to be exact same shirt, but it could be like the same color or the same style of the shirt, for example, that you're like, okay, I have like 3 pairs of shirts or something that I kind of rotate. All right. And or even less. Like you can even go super minimal with it. Like I'll just wear one type of shirt, like, and that's it. And when it gets old, I just buy a new one or whatever. But you can play around with that. And to me, that was like, whoa, it's like such a new dimension of thinking about wardrobe and clothes. And you don't have, because people nowadays, I mean, like, you just walk around everywhere in all the stores and you see this stuff like, I want that, I want this, I mean, I want to look this way, I want to look that way. And this was like, hey, you can free yourself from this burden, kind of. You're like, there's a whole world out there where you can just wear one really nice thing that you like and be happy, be free, kind of like focus on other things, and bringing in the working out part was also quite an interesting thing, because it was like, oh, it's like promoting health, kind of like, with a little bit of vanity built in, obviously, like looking good. But I also like that part too. It's like, okay, well, it's cool. Like, I'm going to work out to look good, Like, it's also a cool little like thing where he himself is not because people say like, oh, I work out, health, blah blah blah, like all these reasons, but then there's an aspect to it which is vanity. Like, I want to look good, right? And he was like shamelessly kind of like, yeah, I went to the gym in the beginning because I wanted to look good. Like, it wasn't about health or anything. I didn't care. But eventually it becomes something about health. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of the quote. And I think overall it had a pretty big impact on my thoughts about clothes and wardrobe and dressing and all these things. So yeah, that's it for me. What do you guys think? Any thoughts or?
Yeah, it's a nice one. I think it's the case of all of us, all the people who go to the gym. They go for the same reason, just to look good. They don't go initially, especially for lifting weights. They don't go
Yeah,
initially to be healthy.
yeah,
And it's a very good one because you can buy a lot of stuff, but you're not gonna look good if you're not fit. If you're
yeah.
if you're obese and
Mm-hmm.
whatever you wear, Fendi, Gucci, you're not gonna look that good. As long as you have you're not fit, you don't look comfortable in what you're wearing. The idea of the minimalistic approach of not having too many things, because less is more. And I think the
Mm-hmm.
first one that I've seen adopting this thing was Mehdi, and he was insisting in all the videos that, guys, it's not that I have one t-shirt, I have the same t-shirt, but it's like 5
Mm-hmm.
or 6 of them, and he keeps rotating. And it's good
Mm-hmm.
because when you look at Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs, they wear the same thing, but because it's less decision fatigue for them, because then
Mm-hmm.
you know what you're wearing, you don't have to wake up and look at your wardrobe and then be confused. I'm wearing this, I'm wearing that. And it
Mm-hmm.
also sets you free or detached from the appearance thing. You don't have to look good to please people. You know that you're good just by yourself. You don't need to build that persona, or you don't need to look in a certain way to please people. You already know your worth.
Mm-hmm.
And what you care about most is normally the intellect side of you, not the looks part. But for me,
Mm-hmm.
I also believe that fashion can be a good way of self-expression. Some people use it as a self-expression for them to express how they feel,
Mm-hmm.
um, how what's aligned with their ideas. If it's music, for example, hip hop culture was known by people wearing large, and then it started shifting, and then the chains and the jewelry that's representing like people coming from the hood, and then making it and then portraying that image. So I'm not against both ideas. I think you should do whatever approach you feel. Working out is a must for me. I think it's essential for everyone. But at the same time, you can either take both approaches or you balance it. You know what you like, you buy different stuff, but you're still detached from the looks. You do it for yourself because you like expressing yourself that way, but you're not super concerned that in every 6 months or 3 months I have to go shopping because people
Yeah.
might say that I have the same clothes.
Yeah. For sure.
I just want to barge in and put my grain of sand in this comment or in this quote.
Eh,
Also, I think the idea is to free yourself from your own idea of image, from your own self idea of or your own self image, and also I think another thing that goes in hand is like healthy mind, healthy body, healthy mind. As long as if you feel healthy, you're healthy, then whatever you wear will make you look healthy, will make you look good. So at the end of the day, it's like empowering yourself without the need of having a variety of things to wear to empower yourself, right?
mhm.
All right, I want to be next with my quote. I have said this quote actually in other episodes. It's a quote by Jerzy Gregorek. Hard choices, easy life. Easy choices, hard life. I love this
That's a
quote.
good.
I love this quote. I actually apply it in my own life because it's basically true. You know, if you choose hard things to do, like if you barge in the extra effort of doing the exercise, of putting in the work, you know, then life will be easier for you. If you choose comfort in exchange of actually like the challenge of life, then life will become harder because then the basic things will become harder to do. You know, if you're used to like just ordering your food all the time, then the time you cannot order food, cooking food will be a pain in the ass. Going for groceries will be a pain in the ass, you know, because you chose the comfortability of spending the money in ordering the food. This is an example. I mean, it can be applied to many things. Exercise the same way. If you choose just to be a lazy individual in the couch watching TV all day, moving
Mhm.
around will become difficult. Well, if you decide to put in the effort and do the exercise and do the sacrifice, then moving around will become easy and you can explore and enjoy more of life itself. I don't
Mhm.
know. What do you think about this quote?
I love this quote. I'm thinking about it from a generational perspective.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you do the right choices for you, and you come from the trenches, you make it, but then at the end, when you try to provide everything for your son or for the next generation, they're gonna experience a certain comfort that's not gonna build them the same way you were built, even if you try
Mhm.
to give advice. And
Mhm.
Um,
I
I
just
will
had this
have to debate
conversation.
that with you because I think it's education
Sure,
as well.
sure. Yeah. I had this conversation, and it was based on studies that even when they try to explain or give advice, and I think we would all relate to that. If we don't really experience something, even if we hear someone talking about it, as long as you didn't really live it, you wouldn't know how it actually feels. It's the same thing when people tell you when you're studying, you're living your best life, just try to enjoy it, because once you start working, you're going to be drained, and you're like, no, I just want to become older as soon as possible. I want to start working and providing for myself. And then you start understanding their perspective when they told you suck on every moment when you're studying, because you're
Mhm.
free of life stress and whatever. So whatever experience you're having, certainly you love your son, or you love your kids, you want to provide all the comfort for them. But again, like when I see, for example, how's life in Dubai, I don't think I want to raise my kids in Dubai, because it's too comfortable. And if you live in a certain environment in which you think everything is safe, I'm protected, whatever I do, not in that sense, but at least if you go somewhere else, for example, my comparison would be Morocco and Spain. For me, Spain was safer than Morocco, but for many people, Spain was still like a threat for
Yeah.
them. They were like,
Mhm.
check yourself, be careful. And for me, I was raised in that um, street smart mindset, like always looking after me and knowing what I'm doing. So it always comes to these experiences that you have as a kid, and if you're super comfortable I look at it also. I'm all over the place. I know, but for example, Marcus Aurelius was a very important figure in the Roman Empire. But then the generations that come after him, even his direct son, when he was trying to advise him and help him know how to fight and give him advice, and he found all the comfort, he didn't do well. And all the generations afterwards, they were just fucked up. Even though you have this very strong figure that can give you advice, but if you don't live these hard times by yourself, you're not really gonna understand what that means. Do you get my perspective in here?
Yes, but this is also something, no? Like hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, weak men create hard times. It's
It's a loop.
It's a loop. It's a cycle in human history, right? And the thing with this, I will have to discuss that the job of the father, of the parents, of the mother as well, will be to cultivate empathy for the kids to understand the lesson without the need to have to experience it. Because then, as a species, this is how we could continue in time. It's not like, okay, 100 years ago, almost 100 years ago, it was the Second World War. We have not experienced the horrors that happened at the time. We do not need another one in civilization, in society, for these generations to understand the horrors that happened at that time. We need to understand and evolve and move on as individuals, as a species, as a society, as a species at the end.
We are witnessing similar things, but it just became very normalized, and because of the media, it's just something
also
normal
because
to see right now.
Who doesn't know about history tends to repeat itself. That's another thing, and you need to educate your kids, because education is the way you get ahead with like you get them ahead in their position. And the issue as well is that the majority of the people are ignorant everywhere.
I agree,
and this is another discussion we can have in another podcast. But when it comes to this beautiful phrase, hard choices make an easier life. Easy choices make a hard life in every concept you want to apply.
Sure, I totally agree. I'll just say one last thing before we debate on it on the next episode. I believe in experiential learning. I believe in education, but even if these kids get educated, if they're not put in challenging environments for them to grow, they're not gonna really understand what's this advice is about until you're actually facing adversity or facing something true, not just because you heard about it. Because you can hear a lot of things from historical books, but then you have a sense of it. You don't fully understand it until it happens to you. That's just what I want to say.
I understand, but that's why you put them on challenges. That's why you educate them in a proper way. That's why you don't tell them like, hey, when it was my time, I used to do chores. It's like, no, you want to go out, you need to do chores in the house. You need to clean, you need to work out, you need to you need to help your mother, you need to help your dad, whatever. This is the process of them also learning by experience. You just don't tell them how things are. You help them grow into adults. Sure. And yes, experience is part of it, but you're not going to tell them like, well, I was in a car crash and I almost died, like touch wood, right? Like just an example. You will never understand this experience, so I'm just going to simulate a small car crash for you. Like, it doesn't work like that. You understand what I mean? You explain the feelings and you hope that the empathy of the kid will understand the situation itself and try not to commit the same mistakes that you did. The thing is, in my opinion, that in these times, people are always saying like, I'm not gonna generate or create or make the same mistakes as my parents did. It's like, you don't understand that your parents were also human and were doing their best they could back at the time. You need to learn from them, and yes, not make the same mistakes, but that doesn't mean that then you need to put your kid in a pedestal and treat him like treat her like it's just a cloud and they cannot experience or live anything, or you cannot tell them no, or like it's still your job to educate them properly and to them to understand the realities and hardships of life and this world has to offer. I
Definitely.
think,
I got triggered by one point, but I'm gonna let it slide for the next conversation. Aslan, what do you have to say about this quote? Just time wise.
I think it's your time to say your quote, Mehdi.
But I don't know if Aslan has any comment about this quote.
Sorry.
Well, I think that I don't really have anything profound to add other than the fact that I agree, obviously. I think that there's also part of this which is like, what is hard for you, like try to like if you're pushing yourself, as long as you're pushing yourself, I think that's kind of a healthier attitude. Like you're feeling like you're challenged, you're pushing yourself, it's difficult, like it's not too easy, that means you're in a place where you're growing, or it's in a good spot, and then you will naturally like increase the amount of the way the how much you push yourself, because you kind of get adapted to a certain state, and then you do more and a bit more and a bit more, and at some point you can just and at some point you're just kind of, I think your whole life you're growing, honestly, but I guess you reach some sort of an equilibrium at some point where you're kind of slowing down a little bit, and you're not as fast paced as you were when you were young, for example. But I think that like it's more of a personal experience for me, like just thinking through, okay, like not what my parents went through, but like what for me, what's challenging me, or in what ways do I make myself uncomfortable at the end of the day. And I'm very much aware of that, and I try to always like balance it and listen to other people's feedback and advice, and like my parents often like they give me some advice, or they're like, what have you been doing recently or whatever, and sometimes they call me out on stuff if I'm not like my dad, if I'm not working out as much, my dad would be like, you need to work out more and shit like this. So it's kind of a balancing act to me of trying to push yourself, to be in a place where you feel like your life is meaningful, and also try to do it in a way where you're not completely ruining yourself, basically. But and it all builds character, but there are obviously degrees of it. I don't think I will go through exactly what my parents went through. I don't think I will. But maybe I could push myself in other ways and face other kinds of challenges. I don't know. But yeah.
Dude, you said it perfectly.
Well said, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next quote from Seneca, one of the Stoic pillars. He wrote a lot of things about the shortness of time, so that's one of them.
Oof.
Powerful.
Oof. This one it's packed.
Super true.
It's packed. So the first line, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. That's often, especially these all these issues that we face in this generation, like anxiety, worrying about the future, stress. It's often coming from our mind not switching off and thinking and building different cases in the future. And that's a reminder that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. If you look at your reality, you will find yourself very blessed, but you still worry about the things that are not happening to you. And about living, or this idea that we discussed before of even being an individual or conforming, being alive or being dead, is, I think there is another quote that it's probably aligned with this one, is look at what you're doing right now, think about it, and see if it's your last day, are you going to be doing the same thing that you're doing right now? So often when we think about life, we don't really feel this urgency. We procrastinate, we do a lot of things when we feel like it, and when being around people, we don't really think, what if it's the last time that we're going to be meeting these people? What if it's our last smile that we're going to share with these people? So it gives some kind of urgency, and it gives also some meaning to your life, because it's ending. So you'd rather be doing the things that gives meaning to your life. Find your purpose, or find your meaning, because it's not any different from just living or living with a purpose. Because just living, it means you're dead.
Yeah, damn, that's a deep one.
Dude, your mind is not your friend.
Yeah, but it's very true. I mean, it's like the first part about suffering more in imagination than in reality.
Yeah.
I think that's so very true for a lot of people, like
Not for
everywhere.
everyone.
Yeah,
I think
Dude,
so.
your mind is not your friend. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, it just makes it
Yeah.
will always like go into this rabbit hole into making you feel like you're in the worst shit ever, and you're actually, as
Yeah.
Mehdi said, you're very blessed.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm.
Yeah.
And
Even
then,
from
yeah,
even from the experiential perspective, because I know that, like, I think this was something I learned when I was doing the Sam Harris's meditation course. He has an app where he kind of goes through it, but there was a part where I found interesting about you know, it's not the pain itself that's causing the suffering. It's like the thoughts about the pain that causes more suffering, for example,
yeah,
which is still related to this in a sense, because it's like, well, it's not like, the worst case example is that, if you're experiencing physical pain, it's your thoughts that give you the suffering, because you're thinking when this is going to end, or why this is happening
yeah,
to me. All these thoughts, they're causing you mental suffering. The pain itself is just there. It's just pain. Like, it's just but yeah, it's I think part of the way to and that's why meditation is a good thing, because part of meditation is learning to notice when your mind does these things to you, and to try to snap out of it, sort of, or just notice it, be aware of it.
sometimes you put yourself in the hole,
Yeah.
and there was no hole to begin with.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
No, it
I
is
do that.
crazy. I do that as well. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I don't
I
have
like the
anything
part
else to add.
also. I also like the part about like the last time, like when was the last time you did this or you did that, just thinking through these things. It's really yeah, part of thinking, like, how am I living my life? You know, is it purposeful?
Is it any different from being dead?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Some deep shit to
Powerful.
ponder about.
Yeah. That's what I like about the Stoics. They write reminders that you can read every day to yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, next quote with Mr. Aslan.
Me. I'll go with okay, I'll do this one. So this one is by Yoji Yamamoto. He's also a fashion designer. He's a Japanese fashion designer. And this one is more about creativity, which I really like, and I think this is an interesting quote. He says, "Start copying what you love. Copy, copy, copy. At the end of the copy, you will find yourself." It's interesting because, so the first thing is that I find interesting about this quote to me is that usually these kinds of quotes about kind of being authentic or true to yourself, they start with, like, be your true self unapologetically or whatever, like, don't try to imitate others and these kinds of things. And here we have a situation where it's like, oh, he's telling me to copy what I like, you know? It's interesting because, you know, it's like, oh, don't try to dig deep into yourself and try to find something. Like, don't start from there. This is a different perspective where, like, you like that, just imitate that if you like that. Like, it's, and I for me, I relate to that in a sense because I have been doing it, not knowing it, for a long time. Like, when I was young, I would, if I like someone or some author or some person I look up to, I kind of start imitating what they do in some way, like kind of doing it the way they do it, or adapting some of their approaches to certain things. Like, oh, this person, this author that I like or whatever, they like this type of music. Let me try and listen to this type of music too. I'm like, it for me, it for some reason it just starts from that, and then I'm like, okay, I want to see if I can embody some aspect of this human being that I look up to. And I don't know, for me it's kind of like this. I don't do it as much now, but at the time when I did it a lot, it was a very interesting process of trying to embody something that I'm not. And I think I take from that something at the end of it. Like, it's like your mind just takes something from that and integrates it as part of itself after you're kind of done with like the initial phase of like, okay, I'm listening to this type of music now, you know. Or like I'm like, for example, for me, really, when I started uh digging deeper into art, or like really appreciating art for not just like, okay, I don't know what this is, but let me just think what the artist wanted to communicate with this, was when I first read about Rick Owens and his thoughts on art. Like, it sparked something in me where it's like, okay, this man is really intentional with his thoughts about art. Like, he really knows what he likes, he really knows what he doesn't like. And for me, that was a moment like, let me try to also think, like, what do I like and what do I don't like? And just be intentional with my preferences. And that kind of opened up a lot of things for me in terms of like, yeah, finding myself, finding what I like, finding who I am, kind of my identity that I'm sort of shaping still, but you know, we're always kind of on a journey. But that was kind of a time where I was like, okay, I'm intentional about my preferences now and I'm conscious of them. It's not unconscious. I'm like, why do I like to listen to this music at this time of day, you know, and this artist? It's interesting. And I just did that. And that's just kind of an example of how I approach this. It's like, okay, this is this person's thoughts about this. Let me try to do the same thing, you know? Um and it could be also in other ways. I mean, people do it in many, many other ways. You can dress as someone that you look up to, for example, you know? People do it all the time, unconsciously sometimes, but this is kind of bringing that into consciousness. It's like, or in art, for example, um, when you're first starting art or design. When I first started design, I would also just copy a lot of the stuff that I liked, the designs that I liked. I would just be like, okay, let me just copy this and see if I can do it as well. I don't want to come up with anything unique. I'm just going to copy what this person did, and I'll just try to do it as well. And it's actually not that easy if you're just starting out. Um, and uh, and I think it applies to almost anything when it comes to creativity. Could be art. I know there's probably a lot of artists who also would give you that advice. When you're just starting out, copy the stuff you like, and you will discover your taste or your approach to things. And I think it, in this sense, to me, it doesn't even have to apply um, just to art or creativity. It could apply to a lot of things in life, and in the same sense, in the same way as like, me trying to discover my tastes and preferences and music and art through my appreciation of some other person's thoughts about it. So I think that, and at the end of it, I think you really take something. You let that marinate in you for a while, and you kind of, you know, you don't just keep imitating others. Eventually, you kind of have these collections of behaviors or thought patterns and things that you kind of just blend in yourself.
You find your module.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a very, very cool quote, and also relates to individuation in some sense, because it's about finding yourself, right? What is the core of your being, kind of, you know? Who do you like? What's your calling? You know, not just like, yeah.
I was gonna say that that's how you learn to be human, right? By copying
Yeah.
other humans, to
Mhm.
begin with your parents when you're a baby, then whoever you actually like idolize when you're growing
Mhm.
up, your favorite artists, actors,
Mhm.
footballers, players, whatever,
Mhm.
how they behave, what they do, how they dress. And
Yep.
I love this quote also, especially for creative people, because it's true. Like, if you're like blocked, what do you like? Figure out what you like, copy what you like, and then you'll find your own ramification of that, your own
Mhm.
interpretation, and the way your
Mhm.
own expression. So that's really cool. I liked it. Sorry.
That's it for me, for my thoughts about it. But I don't know if
Well said.
Mehdi, you want to add
Well said.
anything?
I think you decoded the whole thing.
Ah,
Everything I had in mind was already said by you and Adriano. So we can just move on to the
perfecto.
next one.
Who's
That's
Adriano?
me. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go stoic as Mehdi, and I'm gonna say a quote of Marcus Aurelius, by Marcus Aurelius, and it's similar to the one that he said before by Seneca, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
This one says, "It's not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." So, for me, it's very impactful, because then, like, it talks about like the like and a universal fear, right? The fear of death. And then people are always trying to avoid death, but by avoiding it, they never actually realize that they need to live. They need to experience life, you know, they need to get out there. They need to figure out what this is. Like, sometimes you're just so focused on certain things that you forget the little things that make life enjoyable. You're so
Mm-hmm.
like stressed, like comparing yourself or trying to reach out for success, like working 50 hours a week. And where's life going? It's just like escaping your hands. There's just getting away, and just like focusing on trying to make other people proud, or even trying to reach your own expectations, or your own how do you say this word? Well, trying to reach your own goals, that you forget that you are also need to just enjoy it and live it, and be a human at the end of the day. You know.
Yeah.
Please, Barchin, say whatever you think about it.
Yeah, I want to say something. It's very interesting because when we think about the future, we start building a lot of scenarios, ignoring the only truth that we know about the future is that one day we're gonna be dead.
Yeah.
Yet we think about all the other scenarios as we have a guaranteed life, as this is not gonna happen. And it's also, you can also notice that it's a cultural thing because no one really likes to talk about death, and people avoid talking about it, and in the back of our minds we know that it's gonna happen, yet we're not doing, like, mostly we don't, it's kind of, we don't believe fully that our life is not guaranteed. And it's it's translated into our actions. I mean, it's good to prepare for the future and build a career and whatever, but at the same time, when we give all the time prioritization to this, it means that we're only focused on one thing, that it's not guaranteed, and forgetting that we are living, and there is more about life to take from. Than life has a lot to offer than just this social status or whatever we're dreaming about reaching. So yeah, it's a
Dude,
good
just to
reminder, again, the Stoics.
yeah, and to complement what you said is that it's also like life is not only one way. It's not like only your idea. Like life is not in a box. It's not caged. It's not like locked up there. And then like this is the only way you can live your life, and that's it. Like there's no other way, and this is the only purpose, and this is how you're supposed to do so. And then you feel yourself like you're in a cage because you're not following these steps or whatever. And you're like, no, like life is not like that. Life is unapologetic. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, remind me, what was the beginning part? So, what was the beginning part of the quote? Is it about don't fear death, was it? Or...
No, well, yeah, it says it's not death that a man should fear, but he should
Okay, yeah.
fear never beginning to live.
Yeah, I think to me what I thought about this was also like fear of death, you know, as in like if you take it more metaphorically, like living in a way where you're not afraid of death, but you're more on the side of life. Like it's more like, I think to me, I think of it more as like living kind of at the edge of death, where you're not too comfortable, you know. I kind of relate it to that, because if you think of death, that makes you um a bit more like, and in this case I really don't mean death in the same sense
Yeah,
maybe that people think about it. I mean it in a different way, which it kind of resonates with me. But it's more about living when like you push yourself more, like living as someone who's like um let me do that, or I'll do my best here, I'll push myself here, I'll give my fullest here, no matter the challenge, kind of. And that's like, to me, it's really resonates with this idea of like living at the edge of death, like you're not dying but you're closer to death in a way.
or a purpose living. You know,
Yeah,
have a life with a purpose.
Yeah,
Don't go like living life without doing anything.
I see it. I see it more from that side. If you don't want to fear death, you should live life fully, because at least when it happens, you know that you lived. But
yeah,
if you're doing everything that it's not related to your purposeful life, then you're always gonna fear death, because you still didn't take the time, or because of the other distractions, you didn't really live life fully. So you always fear death
yeah,
because you didn't get the chance to actually live life.
Yeah,
yeah,
you didn't take up challenges. You didn't take different circumstances. You didn't take risks. You just followed the proper correct path. Like
Yeah,
no regrets.
yeah,
100%. Dude,
yep.
this is making me think a lot. Anyways, we'll go to the next one. We're gonna change a bit, talking about death and the shortness of time. Okay, so this next one is by Nietzsche, and I just like it so much. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. I think this one is very powerful.
Mm,
Nietzsche, of course. And well, let's unpack it again into two lines. Whoever fights monsters should see into it that in the process he does not become a monster. And I think when you have an idea in your mind of an enemy, either it's society or you want to challenge anything, there is a huge risk that you might end up being that same thing. So for example, if you want to challenge something that it's immoral, and you find no way with your moral codes, you're probably going to be immoral to fight this immoral thing. You know, like there is always this chance of whatever you're trying to fight or whatever you're challenging, it's gonna turn you a bit into its side. And the other line, and if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. I see it more like I see it in a lot of aspects. Abyss, obviously, that's represent darkness, and I think about it in the sense of your inner self. For example, if you take that challenge, if you're bold enough to look at your darkest truth, this darkest truth will also really challenge you. The abyss will look back, and you should be ready for that. It's not an easy position to be in, and that's why many people, they don't really deal with their shadow, they don't really deal with their traumas or their inner selves, because it's a very uncomfortable position to be in, yet you know that there is a good outcome that can come from it. And it's not only a personal thing, you can see it also from different aspects, that when you're facing adversity, you see that it's a very dark tunnel. You cannot see the light yet, but you're still pushing because you have this faith that it's gonna come afterwards. So I don't know, just for me, these two lines are very powerful from Nietzsche. What do you think, guys?
Jesus, there are so many examples of people, even in comics or whatever, of like they become whatever they vow to destroy, right? And it's literally, and this happens like in real life as well. You know, let's take politics into example. This politician who promises the people the freedom and then becomes a dictator. So
I'm thinking about the villains right now. Like the villains in all the stories, they were kind of good people. They went through a suffering, and then they switched their approach to make justice in a different way or something like that.
Yeah.
Like they become what they didn't want. It's like also like the Death Note.
Yeah.
When he was killing criminals and he ended up being criminal, but he thought that it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It's like kind of the same thing.
It's a duality of the human soul, right? That you're capable of being so good, but you're also capable of amazing atrocities. And then where the line is a very subtle line. And then it depends on what you view as like it's necessary or it's good, and then the different social approach, or actually the reality, if it's actually good or not. I don't know. It's very complex, this one.
It is.
Yeah. It's also about projecting your shadow, right? Because you're projecting it on the outside world because it's not integrated. So in that sense, gazing into the abyss part is more about, like look into your own shadow, you know, and the hating part is more about like projecting your shadow. It's like the stuff that you really kind of, it's the qualities that you hate about yourself that you haven't integrated, that you like you it's not part of you, so you have this part of yourself that you despise, and then you put that on the outside world and you start hating that, kind of personifying that as the shadow. I think it happens also when you hate a character or a villain in a movie or whatever.
You
It's just
identify
that
yourself.
It's like like it's just something that you're not that, and there's a part of you that doesn't understand that at the same time, in a way.
Also in psychology, right? If you hate something from someone else, it's because it's something that you hate about yourself as well.
It's very much, it's all within you, kind of. And I think that part of maybe gaining some kind of wisdom about this, kind of like being able to understand a person who's doing bad things or a character who's doing bad things. It's like, I think this is what actors do a lot, right? When they're playing a villain, for example, because I was watching interviews recently with Cillian Murphy because he's like everywhere now because of Oppenheimer. And he talked about, I think it was 60 Minutes interview, but he talked about when he plays characters, he doesn't think of them as like likable or unlikable. He just looks at like, who is
He
this
integrates
person?
the character.
Yeah, like it was interesting that he doesn't think in those terms, like, it's like, was this a bad or a good person or something? No, he thinks more in the human qualities, like, let me try to embody this. And I think it's very much the same thing that actors do in that sense, where when they're playing like bad characters, for example, or some anti-heroes or villains, they're trying to look more on like the human part of it, and that's part of kind of integrating your shadow in a way as well, I think. But yeah.
Definitely. What I like about these quotes is there are always different lenses by which we can see them and try to unpack them. All right, who's going for the next one?
Is it my turn?
Yeah,
I think so.
You're third and last.
Yeah, well, actually kind of builds up on some of the stuff that
Carl Jung.
we talked about Nietzsche, Carl Jung. Yeah. So yeah, the quote goes, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
I love this one.
Yeah, me too.
This one, I think for me, this one was one of the quotes by Carl Jung, like in the beginning when I first encountered his work. This was one of the quotes that had an impact on me, like made me think, and I think made me really kind of understand the psychoanalytic approach to psychology in a way. Like, kind of, it encapsulates it perfectly. Like, bringing your unconscious thoughts into consciousness and integrating them into your personality. That's kind of one of the central themes of psychoanalytic approach and thought, where that's kind of the way they do the therapy. Like, that's how you do the therapy. Like, this is what the analyst helps you do, which is kind of the perfect way to understand what it is. And about the part about directing your life and calling it fate also is very interesting, because it's like, we tend to do this a lot, I think, as people as well, right? Like, we if you're unaware of things in your behavior, in yourself, then you just kind of, you end up on a certain path, right? And then it's just kind of, you're like, oh well, this is how life ended up, right? But
I'm a Gemini, I can't help it. Sorry, I had to
yeah,
Yeah, and it's a repeated behavior.
It's scary at the same time, because it really actually shows how terrifying your mind is. Like, how vast it is, and you can never, at the same time, you can never really outsmart it. I don't know, I think it's kind of like, it's a struggle, it's a forever struggle, to try to like balance these forces in you, because
you can only try to get along with them, not fight them or not avoid them.
Yeah,
it's the only way.
Don't beat yourself up too much. Maybe Carl Jung was someone who might have been way ahead of anyone else, because he was such a like phenomenal genius in that sense. Like, he would add, like, well, that's kind of also what he did. Like, he interesting thing about him is that he worked as an analyst, but also he was very well, like, he married well, and he basically was like just chilling, like, most of, like, he didn't struggle that much in that sense, because he was kind of like, okay, let me just go and explore my mind, like. And he would have like these daydreams, and like, he would just like dig so deep into himself, and that's not, obviously, that's not like what everyone can do even, or is willing to do, but he would have these like really powerful dreams that he really went in and to explore the world within himself, and also through his patience, right? And I
And
think
that's
once, yeah,
yeah, sorry. That's also related to the previous episode. He also spent a lot of time into isolation to come up
yeah,
with these ideas and realizations.
yeah.
Yeah.
Life also was, yeah, like back in those times, it was way easier to isolate yourself as well. Like he would
Yeah.
just like live in some countryside, with his wife, and like and I think he also had some analysts around him. He would train them, and like it was just yeah, very peaceful and different kind of life, that is almost well, it's much harder to reach that kind of place now, I think, in the modern world. But well, you can probably,
Definitely.
but it's just more difficult.
I'm just glad we still got his knowledge even after his
Yeah.
Oh,
death.
definitely.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Moving to the next one with Mr. Adriano.
Well,
Surprise us.
my last quote. I decided to choose a quote by Mark Manson. I love that dude,
Nice.
by the way. And his work. This goes: the desire for a more positive experience is itself a negative experience, and paradoxically, the acceptance of one's negative experience is itself a positive experience. Basically, shit happens. Like, embrace the truth, accept what is going on, and move on with life and continue. It's not the end of the world. And I love it because that when you're trying to be happy and you're forcing yourself to be happy, the more depressed you are, the more sad you become, the more non-meaning you find in life, and the more like you accept the circumstance that you're like surrounded, and you work on it, and you just continue life as it is, then the better you will be, the more tools you will have to like confront it, and the happier you'll be because you understand that, like shit happens. That's basically it.
It's very well put. Very, very well put.
Definitely, yeah. It's like I think also it's kind of like part of our thoughts, right, being the source of our suffering. It's like the
Yeah.
desire.
And if
Or
you obsess too much about anything, whether it's negative or positive, you end up again in that loop of making it
yeah,
negative, even if it's positive. So
yeah.
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
chill. Take a chill pill, people.
And
Yep.
that's a bit aligned with the next quote. We're ending on a good positive term in this episode.
Nice.
The next one is by Marcus Aurelius, and it's one of my favorites. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Obviously, that's a reminder to all of us that whatever we're facing, it becomes the way. And I think by now, if you're in your 20s, you would realize this by now, that whatever you face and you think that it's negative and maybe the worst thing that can happen to you, it ends up being the best thing that happened to you. And whatever challenges or obstacles you're facing in life, they shape you and they make you a better person, and they build more confidence in you, more self-reliance. And then you build also this faith in yourself that, okay, another challenge, I'm gonna learn from it, I'm gonna grow from it, and I'm not gonna put myself into that state of obsessing about solutions or questioning why I'm the one to be in that phase or to be facing these challenges. You know that you're destined to face adversity in life and that it's contributing into building your character.
Yeah. And I think what I like about this quote is also that life will always throw something at you instead of running away from it or just bitch about it. Like, go straight ahead into this issue and deal with it. Like it's
Mhm.
grab the bull by its horns, basically, kind of thing. And is like whatever issue you have to you're faced with, you have to deal with, that becomes the path. You need to face this issue, you need to solve this issue. Fuck everything else. You can do this.
Again, it's related to the comfort. When you're facing adversity, obviously it's very uncomfortable to confront people or to go through, bad times again. But you know that after these bad times, you're going to be sharper, you're going to be more self-reliant, and you're going to be more confident in yourself in facing these adversities.
Yeah.
It's the same thing also about, like, I don't know who said this quote, but probably one of the psychoanalysts, I think. But like that, what you must find lies where you least want to go.
Boom! I love that one.
That's a good one.
There's also saying that if you have to make a decision or pick between two different options, always pick the most scary one, because that's the one that will make you grow the most. And it's kind of the same, like the obstacle becomes the path. That's dope. I like that.
Yeah.
The obstacle is the way, definitely. All right.
Damn.
I think we
nailed it.
I'm gonna leave that to the listeners to tell us if we nailed it. But I think we talked about more quotes than just 9. I think in every explanation we find another quote that explains the previous one. So okay, we need to count them, but maybe officially we're just gonna say that we're gonna be discussing 9 important quotes that will change your lives. All right, I hope you found value again in this episode. I really hope that if you have any topics that you want us to discuss, you just leave them in the comment section if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast platforms, make sure to leave a review. And this is the Human Library Podcast. See you in the next one.
Peace.
See you guys. Nice.
All right.
Pick up your food.
Because the bitch was ringing.
I need to,
I like that you called him and you were like, please do not ring. He was like,